Nicholas, are we recording? We're good. Ready to start? Okay. This is the new Atlantis podcast. You want to know about that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, should we talk about why I named my podcast the new Atlantis podcast?
Good place to start.
Then you can be like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little history on how this works. Okay, so first of all, this is super cool. Okay, you know what Atlantis is, right?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about it.
Is this a
What do you know?
test?
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
It's a city.
I want to see how much you know.
It's a city.
It's a city, okay. Conceptually, right, it's like the lost city of Atlantis, right?
Yep.
That's how we all know it. Okay. Okay. Do you know what Atlantis means?
That is where my knowledge.
That's where it
level
ends. Okay.
Yes.
This is what Atlantis means. It means city of Atlas.
Okay.
Okay. And when we're talking about Atlas, we're talking about the, what do you call it? Mythological Titan, right? Atlas. Now, here's the thing about Atlas, okay? Everyone, commonly we think Atlas is the guy that's stuck holding up the world, right? Okay, that's actually not how it worked. He wasn't the guy that held up the world. He's the guy that held up the celestial globe, okay? So you got to think about how they viewed back then what environment they were in. Like, and also like think about it, like in Morocco there's mountains called the Atlas Mountains, right? They're so big. And so the idea was that we were all on this planet or whatever, we were all on Earth, and up above us was a globe that was we were all just inside of, and these things were moving around inside this globe piece, right? That was the idea, right? So effectively, Atlas, as far as legend goes, he was condemned, I guess you could call it, to hold up the celestial sky for eternity. That was his punishment for rebelling against Zeus.
Okay.
Okay. So that's how that historically comes into play, right? So that's that. Now, when we're talking about the lost city of Atlantis, of legend, that came through, I believe, Plato. Okay. And it's just the legend of it. There was a city and it was really cool. It was like round in shape and it was on the ocean, had all these like different locks and things and everything like that, which is kind of neat. And it was an extremely advanced city. It was just amazing and advanced, and yeah, then it was destroyed. And bummer, right? Okay. So fast forward to a few neat things. Okay, and I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, but here's neat thing one. Okay. In the 1600s, there was a gentleman named Sir Francis Bacon. Okay, and he wrote a book called The New Atlantis.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the concept behind this book was that there were some seafaring voyagers exploring, right? And they get lost at sea, and they come upon this island. And they go to this island, and they meet this advanced group of people. And they were Christians, okay? And I can't quite remember how the story goes, right? It's not a very good book. You can listen to it on podcast stuff. It's free. You can listen to it if you want. It ended up being only 40 pages because in the end he died, right? And so it was actually produced posthumously. It was actually put out there posthumously. So Sir Francis Bacon writes this story, and they're like this advanced society, this Christian-based advanced society that they somehow got the writings and the information about Christ and everything like that, but they used science as their kind of method for growth or something like that, right? Science was a big part of their society. They had a school that was called, I think, the Solomon School, based off of, named after Solomon's temple. And they had all these advanced technologies and elixirs, and they had what do you call it when you put like an observatory to observe the stars and everything like that? They were extremely advanced. And so it's kind of this neat concept of science and the melding of science and Christianity together. And to me, that's not too far off to where we are as far as a society, at least where we used to be, right? To me, and yeah, to me, what you have Atlantis or the new Atlantis of how that breaks down is almost like the United States. That's what the U.S. became. Um, you had all these people that wanted to be free that came to this country, and as the United States developed, as it became better and better and evolved, I guess you could say, and it maintained these concepts driven by Judeo-Christianity, right? But it also used the I don't know if you want to call it the power, but it's almost like the power that science brought, right? This the scientific method and the mathematics that came along with science and everything like that to build what is arguably the greatest nation, um, most advanced nation in the world, right? The most powerful nation. Now, that doesn't mean the most perfect nation by
Yeah.
any means. However, the technology and the capabilities and what it brings forth and what it's shown us as far as what a free society can accomplish is actually really amazing. So that's kind of why I decided to call it the New Atlantis,
And there you go.
right? And component pieces that bounce around this. I mean, Atlantis was a big deal to a lot of people. The Nazis, right? Atlantis was a big deal to them because they honestly believed in their wackadoo nature that they were this whole like bringing about the Aryan race, the pure race, and all stuff like that. That they were actually charged with. I'm trying to think how to say this, but it's not bringing back, but reorganizing this world for the pure Aryan race, which they believe were the descendants of the lost city of Atlantis.
There you go.
And that's why they did all sorts of wackadoo stuff. And they went to like Nepal and they measured people's skulls and stuff. And they're like, look, we're advanced society and we're great and everything like that. And they used just pseudoscience, garbage pseudoscience to prove all their facts. And they collected lots of artifacts and stuff like that based upon Christianity and things like that. They were really big on that. And then they were defeated, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So
That was the
thank
best part of
goodness.
the story.
Yeah, it was totally the best part of the story. So when you talk about like the city of Atlanta, right? Atlanta has roots with Atlas, right? The Atlantic Ocean is
Yeah.
the ocean of Atlas. So it was a cool name, right? Atlas is a very powerful concept. I don't know if have you read, what's it called? Atlas Shrugged.
Oh, back in the day. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
day.
I'm not super duper big on Ayn Rand's concept philosophy. A lot of it has, in my opinion, has a ton of value though. Particularly if you're a person that I don't necessarily want to say capitalist, but you believe in owning the fruits of your labor, right? It's very conceptually really cool concept too. And she's making the point, I think, in most of what she's trying to put out there, particularly with the idea of Atlas Shrugged, is like these titans, these people that build our modern society and stuff like that, and they put all their energies into creating and innovative and doing amazing things, that this idea of like them getting beat down so much that they finally just quit, right? And I can kind of see that as a possibility. What's sad is I think what happens is rather than them quitting is what they do is they buy off government people, you know, they get their own senators and stuff to maintain their power, which is
Yeah.
bad too. So I thought, why not start the podcast and have a podcast called that? And we talk about business and cool things like that and talk about things that will benefit people's life, hopefully.
Hopefully.
They'll listen to it and people will be like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good times.
You ready to talk about what you do?
Sure.
That's what we're going to talk about.
We're gonna go in there, huh?
We're going to go there.
Okay, let's do it.
Because maybe it's not that interesting.
I walk out of here.
But
Whoa, that sucks.
no, I think here's the truth. I think what everybody does is really interesting.
Yeah.
And anybody that I'm hoping, as far as if somebody stumbles along this, what they're going to learn is they're going to learn a lot about how they can do business and how they can do it better. I had no idea when I was a kid. I thought my dad did business. My dad worked for a nonprofit and he didn't do business, right? My dad did whatever he did, right?
Yeah.
You know, he had like a pocket watch and stuff. It was weird. Okay. So he wore suits, right? So I was just like, suits, that's business. Right? No, this is business. You and me have our own businesses, right?
Yeah.
You're self-employed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You do your own thing. And we've found ways to do neat and innovative things. How long have you been doing your own thing?
I mean, it started off with side and everything. 4 years. Yeah.
4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And before that, you were working in a business, right?
Yeah. So out of college, I bought a franchise, ran that, and then '08 happened and everything
Tell me about this
changed.
franchise. What was it? I didn't know about this.
You didn't know this?
No.
So my dad had recently kind of retired
Yeah.
for like the fourth time, and we decided to go into business. I wanted to go get my MBA, and he's like, "No, let's do a business." And I get it now because, like, in many ways, it was my business.
This is how
school
you get your
opportunity.
MBA. Yeah.
So we bought a franchise doing window coverings.
Okay.
And I laugh because I just brings back stories and memories. But yeah, so bought that. The unique aspect of that franchise was that at the time, and this is like in the early 2000s, they had a computer system that I could measure the windows and put it in and make it appear as
Okay.
what the room looked like. Right?
Yeah,
And this is the cost for your blinds because it had all of the information. So did that for like 4.5, 5 years. It was great as far as learning experience. But then '08 happened and like the crash, and it's just like had to do something
Yeah. Had to
different.
pivot.
And so started working for a company in Salt Lake, and got into. I've always had a passion for like technology, and whether it was within my franchise, like I always naturally gravitated towards the guys that were building the software. And the company, it's RST Brands in Salt Lake. I started off in sales, moved into like the e-com side, worked with the developers, building the site, running the site, maintaining the site, driving traffic to the site. And so, e-commerce became kind of like who I was. And I advanced in there, and that evolves. So it's like, it starts off exactly like I said, like you're just managing and building a website. And then that turns into what systems connect into there and what do we do to optimize that experience for the consumer on the site, but then also back end office. Like, how do you make it efficient so that people can just maximize their time? And so plugging things together and making it work, that's kind of like what evolved. And then since leaving RST, I jumped into consulting for a while where I was doing that, helping, same thing, building websites, structuring it, the process and connecting things. And I just enjoy that process of helping build and manage and make things grow.
Nice. Okay. So real quick before we get into the details of this.
Okay.
You mentioned your dad, and we do need to talk about your dad. Okay.
Thomas.
Because
Yeah.
Thomas isn't just, he's not just some guy. Okay.
No, he's a cool
I
dude.
mean, he's a cool dude. I mean, I guarantee I liked playing pool with your dad. That was always what I liked. But when I was a kid, the reference of who your dad was didn't really mean anything to me. You know what I mean?
sure.
It was like, okay, yeah, I've shopped at Price Savers. I remember that, right? There was Tom Grimway and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't care, right? That didn't mean anything to me,
Yeah.
right? So let's just talk about see, I want to have your dad on because I bet there's a wealth of knowledge in there that needs to come out, right? There's probably a lot of good information. But that's the thing. So you grew up with a dad that was a pretty big time CEO in multiple areas, right? So Price Savers was, if nobody knows what that was, because it's extinct now, right? But effectively, Price Savers is what now you have the Costco's and the Sam's Club. I mean, he sold Price Savers to Pace, right? And then Pace was sold to Sam's Club, right?
Correct.
That's how it worked, right? So what Sam's Club is now, same type of thing, right? It was just early days. That was like, that would have been in the 80s?
In the 1900s.
80s and 90s? Yeah, in the 1900s.
In the 1900s, in the decade of the 80s. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, I mean, that wasn't a small fee. I mean, I remember my first time walking into Price Savers over here in Ogden, right? And thinking this was a new form of doing things.
Yeah.
Right. Totally different thing, right? Where you're buying things in bulk and there's just, you're walking through these aisles of just there's stuff on all these, big, what do you call them? Just pallet racking going to the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what it was. You know what I mean? And there's forklifts around, driving around, picking stuff up. It was a different thing.
Yeah.
This is before Home Depot was a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. So, I mean, call Tom or Thomas that I refer to. Thomas is like, yeah, I had such a unique opportunity to learn from somebody that had experienced a lot of different things. And his story is really fascinating. That's a whole like series of podcasts there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was early in the club business, like early. And as a kid, same thing. Like my dad was just in business but now stepping back and being a dad myself and in business, it's like, wow, that was pretty cool. Like what he did. So he had his own, he started Price Savers.
Right.
And then, like you said, sold that, retired, then got bored, did some stuff with my brother and then retired. That was kind of the pattern. Right. And then eventually, yeah, he was the CEO of Sam's Club. I still like to call him the Brett Favre of Sam's Club CEOs, which means they go through CEOs pretty quickly. He was the CEO for almost 5 years, which is like a record there.
Yeah.
And so he has a ton of experience there. So yeah, take that. And that was he's my mentor who he was bored and was like, hey, let's buy a franchise. And so we ran the franchise together. And like I said, it's my business school. Working side by side with him, learning, him mentoring me. It's and I've taken what I learned there, and then he got bored again. And the company I referenced, RST Brands, he was a partner there as well. And so I got the opportunity to work with him at RST Brands for 5 or 6 years as well. So I had this big chunk of my career where I had Tom Grimm as like a mentor, dad, and business like associate. So learned a lot from him for sure.
Nice.
And still to this day, even though he's out of the game, called him up this week and like, hey, let's game plan this. Like I need somebody to walk through and discuss things with me, and he's always there. So
that's nice.
Awesome.
It's good to have dads.
Oh, yeah.
Dads are a plus.
For sure.
Okay. So that leads us up to now you do website stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you were drawn to, right? Yeah. Okay. So I don't know, what do we got? We got about half an hour.
Let's do it.
In a half hour of time, what can we talk about from somebody that doesn't know anything about why they need a website to somebody that is more like they need a better website, right? All the way to the advanced stuff. Because I mean, so back when I started, I remember like, okay, this is 2004. I need my own website. Okay, what do? I literally I was in college, so I took an HTML course and I built my first website, right? And once I built my first one, I realized how much it sucked. And so then I bought one that used HTML, and then I just coded it to what I needed to, made it a better site, right? So that was back in the day. That would, like 2004. That's when I was very first getting started. Site worked great. It was a very simple e-commerce kind of site, and it worked just fine. And then just as we went along, I mean, and technology was changing, right? I think HTML was the big thing then, and then all of a sudden everything went from that to everything was driven way more by JavaScript, right? And then this whole concept of content management system, CMS, came into play, and the complexity just got bigger. I remember I built a site, or actually bought one, but it was Joomla is what I used.
Nice.
You're going old school. That was the next one. That was the Joomla, right? And now I think our current one is based upon a WordPress.
Yeah.
And that's our main Expedition One type website. If you go to expedition1.com, but then our store, we went with who do we go with? It's now Shipper Shop. Shipper Shop. Yeah. By the way, Sarah's here. I forgot to tell everybody. My lovely wife Sarah is flanking me. She's a good time. I like keeping her around.
She's a keeper.
She is a keeper for
Yep.
sure. I keep her really close. I don't think she likes how close I keep her, but I keep her close, right? So, okay, so yeah, we're getting into CMS. What's the world that we're dealing with here? Like, I mean, to what level does somebody need? Okay, look, you just need a basic site, right? You can build them like Wix has a pretty basic stuff. I mean, there's what is something for someone that's a good basic site like to start off of when you
Yeah.
don't have money and you don't need the e-commerce side of it.
But even before getting into that, it's evolved so much. So like to your point, early 2000s, like you were limited, and then you had to code, and you had to like kind
Right.
of like band-aid it together.
Radio
and you're like,
buttons.
ta-da, and it still didn't work. There's so many options today. That, you know, whether it's Shopify, Wix, like WordPress is consistently used and has been for years, because partly because of the marketplace and the ability that you have so many developers that you could help out with, and then the plugin aspect. So it's interesting. Throughout my consulting, you know, somebody that's just starting a business, like, got to have a website, and you do. Like, it's part of it, and there's plenty of other pieces that go into that now. Just pick one. Like, if you're in e-commerce, whether it's you want to use like, you know, BigCommerce or Shopify or something, you know, of that aspect, you can. And there's so many. You used to have to figure out like, okay, I have a website. How am I going to get somebody to be able to check out now? How am I going to take payments? What type of payments? That game has changed. And so I always tell people, like, pick one. None of them are perfect.
Yeah.
So pick the one that you like the feature set and it suits you. So, you know, and then go with it. But no, and clients don't like to hear this, websites are never finished. And so,
Right.
so a lot of times people say like, oh, I bought this website and I spent like 20,000 or 30,000 or 50, whatever the number, 10,000, maybe for a startup, it's 5,000. And it doesn't, and it's always not going to do something like
Right.
Yeah.
you're going to constantly be improving and iterate off of that existing piece into something else. So I would always advise people, like, pick one and know that if it does 80% of what you need, go with it, and realize you're going to try to pick up the other 20% somehow, some way. I'm platform agnostic. Not because it just, there's not one that's perfect. So I've done a lot with Shopify. I've done a lot with like on an enterprise level, and it's not common, but for some reason I've become known for like in the NetSuite space. So I've done a lot of NetSuite ecom. And for those that don't know what NetSuite is, it's an ERP system for accounting. And they've also built an e-commerce piece. So one of the big troubles that you usually get when you get to a certain level of a business is that you've got to make your website talk with your accounting system.
Right.
And that usually involves inventory. It usually involves payments. And those can be challenges as you're scaling and growing, right? So the whole concept of like a NetSuite website is that it is one and the same. So your accounting piece is also your website. So there is no integration with your inventory.
Right.
It's showing. So if your ERP shows 0, your website shows 0. You're not dependent upon an API. You're not dependent upon like any middleware pushing that back and forth. That's so that's that side of it. And so, yeah, so for some reason, going back to your original question, I've dealt with the WordPresses. I've dealt with lots of different platforms. Probably the ones I've used the most are Shopify, because it's a common one, and
Yeah.
it's become very popular over, I would say, the last 10 years.
Right.
And then some, and this is very unique, but for some reason in the NetSuite space, I've gotten to know that ecom piece quite well. So what's cool about that is, like, usually Shopify is like a startup situation, and the NetSuite is usually like somebody that has advanced past. They're usually anywhere from like 12 to 30 million in top line revenue.
Yeah.
And so they're scaling, and like things are breaking and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to come in and like build those out. So anyhow, long answer to a single question, but there you go.
No, that's
sense,
kind of what I figured. I mean, because that's the thing. Like Shopify is a very popular one. I know the reason why we didn't go with that. We went with Ship for
was
Shop.
3D
Basically,
card
it
at
was
the
3D
time.
card at the time. The reason why we went with them is just the ability to, because our products or Expedition One products they required so much customizability, right? So we needed that ability for people to select like 50 different items going into one. And Shopify had that, but they just wanted to charge you a ton for it.
Yeah.
Like it got expensive real fast. So that's the one reason why we didn't go with that. Other than that,
And the bookkeeping system, because I think that is crucial, especially
right.
if you're a small business owner, you want to automate as many pieces as possible, right? Because otherwise you just keep like taking on more and more tasks, and then you're buried.
Yep. And usually when you start and you think website, you don't think that side of it. You think the front facing consumer side of it. It's got to look pretty. It's got to, eventually it's got to be fast. It's got to have good images. It's so important, all of that stuff. But really that back office is super critical to the e-com side, because you may be taking on orders, but if it's broken on the backside, like it's going to reveal itself to the customer eventually. So
Right. Yeah.
So having that connectivity, that you can like get an order where it needs to be, or you have that flow of process. The order comes in and it's represented in your accounting piece somewhere. That's critical.
Absolutely.
How critical is, okay, I know this is actually very critical. Okay, so that's the e-commerce side. I mean, my daydream is, someday we're doing NetSuite. You know what I mean? But I mean, obviously building something like that all functions together, that's not cheap, right? That's got like, you're in the $100,000 range or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, each NetSuite, and I've done a lot of NetSuite consulting. Each NetSuite deal is different. They usually stretch the contracts out to like a 3 or 5 year process. And it depends on what bundles and all of those aspects, right? So the most recent deals I've seen usually are like 120K, but that's spread out between a 3-year process. So
that's actually not too terrible.
Yeah. I mean, those Oracle guys, they're pretty tricky. Their sales team is phenomenal. Yeah. So you see that big ticket, but then it's only like $4,000 a month. And you're like, yeah, but I'm paying for it for a long time. But it's a good tool. And especially if you're scaling, and it helps a lot, because whether you're looking to be acquired or you're trying to bring on partners, like it's that mid-market up to enterprise level, it's growing. It's a very common software. And so it's easier to, if there is an acquisition, like people accept, oh, cool, NetSuite. Yeah, we use it as well.
Right.
So it works in that way, and it's cloud-based. It works. It works. But it to start off with NetSuite it's not cheap.
Yeah. It's not necessarily the ideal thing unless you're jumping in.
You got the cash.
Feet
That's
first,
awesome.
and you got the cash.
Yeah.
But
if you're VC back, go for it.
Go for it. Yeah. Okay. So the next item that I wanted to talk to you about, because that's the website, right? That's your storefront, right? In our modern world, very modern world. But the next piece of that is getting your storefront seen, right?
Traffic.
And it's the traffic, right? We've been noticing just recently, Kai, we've been looking at our marketing stuff, right? And what I'm seeing here is like, okay, so a lot of stuff that we have going on that's more on the, I don't know how to describe it, but okay. So as far as being seen, Google is still Google, right? And that seems to be the king. Like we were looking at, so where do most people hear about us? I think Google is still number one.
Yeah.
And we don't do much. We don't do nearly as much as we should as far as trying to be seen on Google. Our budget on Google is really tiny. I've noticed that I'm spending a little bit more money on like Instagram and Facebook. And we usually are seeing a lot less on Instagram and Facebook. It just seems like it's hard to be seen on those these days. Instagram, like, okay, so it's like they want you to push reels. They want you to really push reels like crazy. So, it used to be great. You'd throw up a picture and you'd be like, awesome. And sometimes your picture would go a long ways. Now it's like you throw up a picture and you get 2 people. They're like, share it on you know,
Yeah.
awesome razors. Yeah,
Motorized.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like those are your two comments, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, that kind of sucks, right? Whereas when you do a reel and you do a good reel, I mean, you get way more traction, which I kind of get that. I get why they're doing it. I know that like TikTok's kind of a component piece of that competition, stuff like that. But yeah, on Facebook, Facebook's one of those things where I'm just like sitting there like that. How you have to fight for visual real estate on Facebook, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean they've saturated the entire ad platform, and then compound that with iOS 14 that happened a year and a half ago now. Almost 2 years this summer, where Apple changed the game for Facebook and Instagram.
Let's talk about that. Tell me about that.
Well, iOS 14. I mean, anybody that's in that digital marketing side came out. Like I said, it'll be 2 summers this upcoming summer. It basically took away a lot of what digital marketers were using to track and to be able to hone in audiences. And you saw it as soon as that happened. Like the game changed. Everything changed within what you're doing with your ads. And so you're right. Like these platforms before, 5 years ago, people were just like stupid money where they would just throw up an image on Instagram or Facebook and like tons of engagement, tons of like for the company. And that's gone. I am no meta expert, but they really have kind of broken the platform in a lot of ways where it's overly complicated. And then add iOS 14 and then add new competition like TikTok. It flipped the script. So you can still make money on Instagram, you can still make money on Facebook, but it's way harder than it used to be. And then not even all of those, but then you compound it with like the COVID series of what e-commerce, what happened there. And then you had all of these overnight digital marketers that like could just show you all these great results, but it wasn't, no offense, there's some great ones out there, but most of them it was by pure luck, that they had that. The game's changed. So yeah, when it comes to social, there's some challenges on Instagram and Facebook. Absolutely. You can still drive traffic. It's costly. You don't have nearly the vision that you used to have on that. You have to play some games, and there's some tools that are coming on that are better. But it's still not there. And so then you have this giant called Google, where, with Google ads, most businesses still see a lot of traffic come through there. The cost per click, it depends on what market and what product. You can be competitive there. And a whole other discussion is just how much of a monopoly they have on that. They have so much information. So when you talk about on Facebook and Instagram, iOS happening and making it to where you have less information on people, but then you have Google, and the number one browser is Chrome, and everybody's logged into Chrome, and they just gather and gather and gather information. And so you can market really effectively with that. And yeah, it continues to drive. But I also would say what I've noticed over the last year, maybe after iOS 14, like a lot of traditional marketing that digital marketers would be like, oh, that stuff doesn't work. It's coming back more and more. So print ad and
Really?
like mailers and things like that. Yeah. Like some of the old school things. Maybe it's generational, the
It
Generation
could be
Z and stuff like, oh, I've never seen this before, but it's like, yeah, this is how they used to do it all the time. But those are coming back, and I've seen some success there. But I think when you talk about digital marketing for a website, again, there's maybe some segments in time in which like you just get lucky on a new platform and you see stuff, but consumers have always been drawn more towards authentic, real content, reels, right? And that's where it's harder to fake that. So, like you reference reels, like, yeah, they do work. One, it's because of the TikTok thing and the algorithm, they put more emphasis on it. I did read an article this week where Instagram, they're saying they're putting more focus back on images in the upcoming year. But you have this new TikTok, you have Instagram, you're going up against each other with these really quick and effective videos. but
That's hard.
it's
man.
hard to do.
It's so tricky. Like I'm pretty good at making videos, right?
Yeah.
And these videos, you have to, the amount of time that you have to spend just finding, like, because finding something that's going to trend, right? You want it, finding an audio that's going to be that's going to be a good fit. So you already, this is what's so weird about it. Is like, so it's like this weird racetrack that you're on. You're sitting there and you're going through and you're trying to find new audio and new cool things. And you're going through and you're saving a bunch of them. You're like, okay, I can make this. And that's part of the views that are being achieved is you trying to find just audio to share with, right? That's going to trend and going to be cool. And then you stack that all up, then you have to make your reel, and the hard part about it is some of them, like, you're going to make one that's going to be awesome and it's just going to be a big hit, and others it is just, you think it's going to go well and you're like, that was it.
Yeah.
You don't get anything through them. It's just hard to know if you're going to get any traction on any of them.
I often wonder how sustainable that model is. Like, I think it was Gary Vee. Like, I think he said that he suggests that something like 35 content pieces a day. And
Yeah.
like,
Oh my gosh.
That's insane.
unless you have the army that he has, like, who has time for that and to run a business? And so
Right.
then it becomes into, and it also, I think the challenge is to make sure that those are all personal and or unauthentic. That's challenging. So, and the game has changed on that too. 3 years ago, you could get a passionate fan of your brand to like create some content that you could repurpose as like a reel or anything.
Yeah.
And that game's changed because now you used to be able to do it for free or maybe some product, and now people are like, wait, I should get paid for that. So now there's a cost all associated to that, because if you're not going to spend 12 hours a day creating content, you need your customers to create some influencers to create that. That adds up very quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that market in the next 3 to 5 years, because it's ever changing. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Do you think, so here's the thing, TikTok, just since we're kind of on the subject, TikTok is this thing where we don't have a TikTok.
Yeah.
And part of it is just what they want you to do, like their terms of agreement. I just don't trust that.
Yeah.
Right. There's all this talk about in Congress and stuff like that of potentially banning TikTok and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on all that? Do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there. We'll stay with TikTok for a while. You're already seeing it, like where government employees are not allowed to have it on devices. I mean,
Interesting.
if you do read into the terms and conditions, like you're pretty much handing over the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
Like you're allowing them. And I don't know how political we want to go there, but like it's tied to a government outside of the U.S. Right.
Right.
And I used to travel there a lot, and it's very different as far as like the content and like the what they're presenting in China, but then also, they're gathering a lot of information. Now, do I think they're the only ones doing that? No, I still think even the U.S. based ones that we talk about are gathering.
No, they're gathering everything.
But the difference is the U.S. base eventually the government can step in and do stuff, where if it's a foreign entity, like they're just gathering a lot. Have you even looked at like the difference of TikTok US versus China?
No,
it's substantially different. So like
I've heard like
they're sending like kids, like they have a very set age restriction. Kids that are on there, they're serving up only educational views. And so and I cannot remember, it was an influencer, but basically when you did a survey of like US kids, every kid they said, what do you want to do to grow up? Like the highest percentage right now is like to be an influencer, You do the same survey in China, it was still an astronaut or, a doctor or something like that.
Really?
So they're serving up certain content to their audience there. That is definitely changing the perception and doing stuff. And then they're serving up like a very, very like higher end and more higher octane version over here. They're not
Right.
serving up the same one in their own country. So that tells me
Very
a lot.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder. I mean, the United States, just us here, we have this really. Americans are this weird anomaly. We don't make any sense because we're all kind of a lot of us are all kind of idiots, right? In the sense that we do stupid stuff. In what world do you have it? Well, it's in this world. And it's in this world that you have us that's like, hey, the person that gets all the hits or all the views or something like that is somebody that's, is Jackass, right?
Yeah.
It's that movie, right? People doing dumb stuff. We all watch it, right? Everybody wants to see a train wreck. But the weirdest part is someone can be extremely successful and extremely wealthy. And even though we have this culture that is driven by literally lots of people doing stupid things, right? And keeping us all entertained, we still manage to do stuff like, I don't know, whatever Elon Musk is doing at this time, right? Whether it's like making electric cars or whatever, it's like we still are moving at such a high rate of speed and so advanced. Like the government has to put like brakes on the movement of the American society. Like I've like this pandemic has shown like everything that can happen, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I just think about it. I'm like, I think if when you release the reins of the American economy and you let people just, hey, I'm going to do my stuff. I'm going to create my own company. I'm going to do this stuff. We just go.
Yeah.
And the big problem that we ran into is like, oh, we're running on the ability to produce stuff fast enough for the demand of things that people want. But then our immediate knee jerk is like, okay, well, that's robots. We're just going to go with robots, right? So then we're all moving towards robotics. I mean, I think in the next decade, you're going to see robots in all over the place. I think you'll see them in grocery stores. I think you'll see them at fast food restaurants.
You already
I'm
do.
pretty sure. Yeah, they're going to be in there
Self-checkout.
at a much higher rate. This automation, I mean, that's what we do. We're like, oh, let's automate. And so it's just an interesting thing about American society is that we just keep pushing and we just keep going. And we're not doing it based upon someone pointing a gun at our head by any means. We're just doing it based upon, hey, we want to do this.
Yeah.
It's our free will. It's our drive to do the stupid stuff that doesn't make sense to anybody. I mean, you think about it, go back to World War II. Jeep was invented by necessity. We needed a light infantry vehicle to replace the horse. Okay, so they built it, right? Fast forward to now. Why do we have Jeeps?
So we can go
They're
on cool
awesome.
trails.
Yeah, so we can
Put
have
big tires
fun.
on 'em.
Yeah. Why do we do? Yeah, exactly. Put big tires on it, make it look cool, drive around, and be like all flashy.
I'm going to go to the mall.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, exactly. That is what we are as a society, and like I think can that momentum be destroyed? I totally think it could be destroyed.
Yeah.
It can be destroyed by a lot of things. If we destroy our culture too much, if we go towards all the negative ways of being, right? So we talked about Christianity a little bit, okay? So this is I'm going to give my blanket concept idea that I've gathered from Jesus, okay?
Okay.
This is what I think Jesus's whole gig was. His whole gig was all the negative stuff, negative emotions and negative feelings that will prevent your growth. You need to just let them go.
Yeah.
I literally think that was like, besides, being the savior of mankind and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I think the big thing he tried to teach us all is you just got to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
Right? Like the whole, the Lord's Prayer where he talks about forgive us our trespasses, we forgive others, right? That whole, I'm probably misquoting that, but I haven't said the Lord's Prayer for a long time because I'm not Catholic. But within that thing, I mean, his whole concept there is about literally letting go. That's literally about, oh, okay, so I'm forgiving other people of their trespasses against me, right? And I need to forgive other people. That's a hard thing to do, right? That's wrapped up in emotions of anger, of sorrow, of hatred, of all these things. And he's telling you, yeah,
Let it go.
You need to move that away from you,
Yeah.
right? And it's one of those things where I'm like, I think that's like one of the key things that helps us move forward is in this day and age when like it's like the who can be offended Olympics. I don't know what to call that. You know what I mean? It's like who's most offended,
Yeah.
right? Who's most offended at what time? It's like so much is driven by this weird idea of being offended by every little thing and being triggered and stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't think that was the gig.
Yeah.
I think that's what led us for so long to be to a place where we are, is that whole ability to just be like, I don't agree with that. It's not my thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
And not letting it affect us, not letting us tear us down, not let it drive us emotionally to do something stupid and idiotic or rude or mistreat somebody just because we're offended. It's like, what's the point? Right?
No. Yeah. Good. Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was my rant for that. Okay. But I just think that's the whole thing, is I think our society, as long as we keep those things in check, we maintain positivity. Like, I don't think the American society, I don't think how we are, the United States, can be really brought down. I think it'll maintain its strength as long as those things are kept in check.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack on that one.
Indeed.
But I think where I take it is we've always had idea makers. Like that's been kind of the jam. Or if you look over the last 50 years, like 100 years, we've had great visionaries, and then that kind of evolves. I do get nervous when everybody just wants to influence rather than build. Like,
Right.
It
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
It's like
everything-
everyone wanted to be a movie star
Yeah.
at one point, or famous.
yeah.
It doesn't really work that way.
Everybody wants the easy way or the chill way. It's good to use your hands. We need people to build, to think, to grow. We can't lose that DNA. Like
Yeah.
that is kind of the special sauce, I think, where sure, there's some countries that are great at building, but the ideas and visions have typically come from within here. And
Yeah.
we got to keep that for sure.
If we could figure out a way to reverse that, I mean, one thing that I've thought, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit, but I'm going to try not to. Like one thing I thought about is like, what would be so valuable for, like, say, Governor Cox, right? We're in Utah.
Yeah.
Right? If anyone's watching or wondering where we're at, we're in Utah. Our governor is Governor Cox. I'm like, if that guy wants to win the day as far as being reelected and everything like that, I don't really, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In Utah, it's like, hey, we got a Republican. You know, that's just how it works, right? He seems to be doing fine. You know,
Yeah.
I like the last guy. I like the guy before that. But one thing I think this guy could do, or any governor could do in his state, is actually mandate on an educational level. I don't know how you do it, but do something where you're mandating on an educational level for high school students a mandatory class that they actually take a class on personal finance.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing that it blows my mind as far as an employer, is how many employees that they don't really understand the art of how you actually budget, right? And when you're paying their wage, and this pandemic showed a lot of it, right? Because a lot of people, inflation kind of kicked everybody's butt, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was amazing to me how many people were just like, they couldn't budget to survive it. It becomes a difficulty, right? And then, you know, we had one of our employees we talked with, and it was like, go through his budget, and it's like, dude, you're spending like $200 a month on Red Bull. Like, how is that working for you right now? Is water really that bad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't. I'm not trying to diss him or anything like that. I mean, he realized that. He was like, whoa, you know? And there's a lot of changes that he made just to tighten up his life and to budget better and everything like that. And I think it was a good thing. But that's the whole problem, is a lot of kids aren't taught those things.
For sure.
They just, I mean, we took a course. Who was it?
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey. We took Dave Ramsey course, and I mean, it was a huge game changer for us. Being able to budget and live off of. It's amazing how little you can live off of if you're organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you plan ahead.
Yeah.
It's like all no-brainer stuff.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's just like, oh, Christmas comes same time every year. Like, maybe
Plan
you
for
should
it.
save all year for it. These
Yeah.
birthdays happen at the same time, or like repairs. It's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to save a lot, but if you're saving a little for all these things, like, you're prepared
Yeah.
when you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty, I mean,
good stuff.
I just think that would be a great thing if he moved that direction. But I mean, that's what makes, I think that's one of the difficulties for the younger generation, right?
Yeah,
And the credit card companies love that you have no idea how to budget.
for sure.
It's their favorite thing,
Stress about
right?
that.
So, and it's just difficult, man. With that's the thing that I worry about. The younger generation has more to do with that, and also the internet, not the internet so much, but social media is, I find, problematic in primarily as far as influencing us in bad ways. What do they call it? Something travel envy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that.
Sarah struggles with
I
travel
have
envy.
travel envy really bad.
It's one of those
I have to
things
stay
where
off social media because I just don't want to see what trip, so and so went on,
know,
and
yeah.
I don't want to know.
I
That's
realized,
funny.
dude, I spend more time on Facebook just liking people's family posts. You know what I mean? That's what it's become for me.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. So I think it's fine. People go on trips. I'm like, great, they went on a trip or whatever. You know what I actually think a lot of traveling is just like, how much work did you go through to get there? Okay, so that was a 9-hour flight, right? You know what I mean? Then you had to carry all your bags and crap, and you had to walk how far to get onto that. You know what I mean? I just like, then what got lost on the way. And
yeah,
I think traveling can be more stressful than not.
Yep.
I'm like, I can go up to the mountains right around here and just hop in a hotel and just zone out, you know what I mean? Tune out the world. And I can probably get as much refreshment as if I go on vacation. Sometimes I just think vacations are much more visually stressful than they really should be. So anyhow, any words on that, Matt?
I agree.
You
I'm more
agree?
with Sarah though.
Yeah, it's worth it.
You do have some travel envy.
For sure.
Where do you want to go?
Where do I want to go? I used to travel to South America a lot for work,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't spend a lot of time for fun. So I'd like to go there with my family. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I would like to go to Europe with my family. I think that'd be cool. I guess. I mean, they want to go to, like, all
They
my
don't
kids
wanna-
are like,
they
we
don't
want
wanna
to
go
go to
anywhere.
Japan. And I'm like, why?
It's like the only
I
place
don't
they
get
want to
it.
go is
They
Japan.
all want to go to
Really cool.
Japan. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
well,
There's lots of cool
we
places.
can do that.
Exactly.
Australia would be cool. New Zealand would be cool.
Yeah.
There's this. You would not die in Australia, dude. No, there's this whole thing called the Gold Coast. If you stay along the coast, you're fine. You just don't go inland. That is
They have
true.
big spiders.
There's some freaky.
snakes.
There's some freaky. That's
Snakes
one
and
great thing about the
toilets,
internet
what?
is you can see some freaky stuff.
Yeah.
That is out there. That and cat videos. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Nice. Yep.
All right. Well, we gotta go, right?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
You gotta go get the youngin.
Yeah.
We're gonna go out to eat.
Yeah.
This is great. So this is a first podcast.
This is the
This is
Episode
numero
one.
uno.
Oh,
Introductory.
This is an
boy.
introductory
Okay.
podcast, and this is the kind of stuff that I want to do. Is talk about business and stuff like that. We'll have to have you on again. Will you talk with Thomas?
I will talk with Thomas. Yeah.
Because
See
we'll
if we
get you
can
guys.
him on.
We'll get both of you guys on here and just talk business strategy stuff. What makes the difference between here and there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think we should go more in depth too on kind of these subjects,
Let's
like
do
social
it.
media. I mean, everyone knows social media, but how do
There's a
you?
lot- there's a lot to unpack.
How can we unpack? Yeah, what can we do? How can we make people's lives better so
Exactly.
they have more success and that kind of thing? So
Cool.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. This was great. Thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good one.